He flew 7,000 miles to marry me and hold my hand through pregnancy. But late-night whispers, hidden emails, and one chilling line changed everything. Once she delivers, I'll have everything I need. I used to think love sounded like music. Like late-night playlists and someone humming in the kitchen. But sometimes, love sounds like silence. Like being talked through not to. Like your name never quite reaching their mouth. Hi, I'm Angelica. I'm 26. I've been partially deaf since I was a toddler. A fever took part of my hearing and left behind the static. Growing up, I got used to watching lips instead of listening. Got used to nodding when I wasn't sure what was said. Got used to being the sweet girl with hearing aids, who people thought was brave but never enough. So when I met him, when he typed first instead of talking, I let myself believe that maybe this was how real love started. Safe. Thoughtful. A string of messages that turned into video chats and 3 a.m. laughter, and I stayed up just to see your face. He lived in South Asia. Half a world away. Different time zone, different language, different faith. But he listened. Or at least he typed like he did. He told me I deserved the world. And after a lifetime of being passed over, I believed him. Maybe that's why I didn't question it when he booked a flight 7,000 miles just to meet me. Maybe that's why I said yes when he proposed in my backyard 3 days after arriving. I didn't hear wedding bells. I heard relief. I wasn't a maybe anymore. I was someone's forever. We got married in my hometown. Just a simple ceremony. My mom did the flowers, my dad walked me down the aisle, and my cousin live-streamed it on her phone. People smiled. His eyes smiled. I smiled too, the kind that almost felt real. When I told him I was pregnant, he cried. He held my hands and said, "We'll build a new world here. Just us." And for a second I thought I'd finally escape the static. But you ever have that moment where something inside you flickers, and you don't know why yet? It happened when I woke up one night and he wasn't in bed. I padded down the hallway and found him in the living room. Lights off, blinds shut, whispering in a language I didn't understand. When he noticed me, he didn't stop. He just said, "Go back to sleep. It's work." I wanted to believe him. I needed to believe him. Because if I didn't, if I admitted the weirdness, the distance, the way he never told me who he worked for or what he really did, then I'd have to admit something worse. That maybe this wasn't love. Maybe this was just another kind of silence. And if you're wondering why I didn't leave then, yeah, same. I wish I had. The next morning he handed me a protein bar, kissed my cheek and said, "You're glowing. You're gonna be a great mom." Then he locked himself in his office again, and didn't come out until dinner. That was the first time I felt like a tenant in my own home. Like I'd leased my life to someone who'd rewritten the fine print. I didn't know it yet. But that was the last week I'd feel like a wife. The next month, I'd become something else entirely. You ever wonder how fast love turns into fear? Like the exact second the tone shifts and you tell yourself you imagined it? There was a receipt on the kitchen counter that night. A long one. I don't remember the store. But I do remember one item. Prepaid international SIM. Anonymous data plan. Activated. And just like that my stomach dropped. Because I wasn't supposed to see it. And I wasn't supposed to ask. That's when I realized he wasn't building a life with me. He was building a firewall. You know that feeling when you're halfway through a conversation, and you suddenly realize you're not in it? Not really. You're just reacting. Nodding at the right times, laughing when it's safe, pretending you're part of something when the truth is, you're just there to fill silence. That's what being married to him started to feel like. Started with small things. He stopped saying good morning. Then he stopped asking about the baby. Then he stopped looking at me. But he still made his coffee. Still shut the door to his office. Still took calls at midnight, whispering in that same low tone in that same other language, like he had a double life that didn't include me. One night I asked him outright, "What exactly do you do all day?" He smiled without smiling. "You wouldn't understand. It's complicated." I said, "Try me." He said, "You Americans always think you need an explanation for everything. You Americans." It didn't hit me at first. But later, after he shut the door in my face, I realized he wasn't just talking about cultural differences. He was removing me, making me a category, like I was the outsider in my own house. And if you're wondering why I didn't just shout back, I was pregnant, sleep-deprived, half-deaf, holding on to hope like it was a life jacket I wasn't allowed to let go of. I still believed the man who held my hands and promised me a new world was in there. Somewhere. I know how that sounds. I know people will say I was naive. But have you ever needed to believe someone was good just so your world wouldn't collapse? That's where I was, begging the air for proof that love hadn't tricked me again. There were more receipts. Uber rides to parts of town he'd never mentioned. Cash withdrawals from our joint savings. A new Gmail account autofilling when he borrowed my laptop one day. I clicked it out of habit, muscle memory. The inbox was in another language, but the subject lines didn't lie. One said, confirmed arrival, room blocked for 2 nights. I translated it later. It was a hotel reservation for 2. You'd think I'd confront him. You'd think I'd scream. But instead, I made dinner. Roasted chicken. Couscous. Spinach with garlic. Because if I didn't do something normal, I was going to fall apart. I set the table. I waited. He came out 2 hours late, said he already ate, and walked back into his room. I stared at his plate until the food went cold. Then I scraped it into the trash. I didn't cry. I didn't yell. I just sat down in the dark and told myself, tomorrow. You'll ask tomorrow. But I didn't. Because the next morning I woke up to a new rule. He was already standing at the door with his bag, buttoning his shirt. I'm going to work, he said. Don't call unless it's urgent. And keep the baby quiet. I need to focus when I'm home. I said, you work from home. He looked me dead in the eyes and said, not anymore. Don't make this harder than it needs to be. And then he was gone. Just like that. No kiss. No love you. No goodbyes. Just gone. That night, I sat with my baby pressed against my chest, listening to the sound of the washing machine and wondered how long I could survive this. I told myself, it's stress. It's the baby. It's the cultural adjustment. It's a rough patch. But then I found the letter. It was taped to the back of the filing cabinet drawer behind some tax documents. I wasn't looking for it. I was just trying to organize the chaos. It was written in English. Not addressed to me. Not even signed. But the first line? Once she delivers, I'll have everything I need. I froze. I read it again. Then again. There was no name. No direct threat. Nothing overt. But it felt wrong. Like a script from a conversation I was never supposed to hear. And suddenly I started thinking about the timing. How he stopped touching me after I got pregnant. How he started hiding his phone. How he began talking about opportunities back home. What was I to him? A vessel? A convenience? A green card ticket? Was the baby the plan or the exit strategy? I know how paranoid that sounds. But you try reading a letter like that in your own house and tell me your hands don't start shaking. I called a legal aid group that afternoon. They specialize in immigrant spouse protections, something I never thought I'd need. But now I needed options. Because if I was wrong, I'd look crazy. But if I was right, I might already be in danger. You ever start doubting your own memories, not because they changed, but because someone made you question whether they ever mattered? I kept rereading that line. Once she delivers, I'll have everything I need. It wasn't meant for me. And that's what scared me most. That night, I checked the door locks 3 times. And still, I didn't sleep. Because I knew whatever he wanted from me, it wasn't love anymore. There's a difference between being afraid and being aware. Fear is what I felt the first time I stayed up all night, just watching the hallway light flicker under the door. Awareness is what happened after I stopped trying to justify the flicker. Because once you stop explaining the shadows, you finally see what they're hiding. He started sleeping out more often. First, it was once a week. Then twice. Then every night. He'd say it was client obligations or late calls or time zone conflict. But his clothes started to smell different. Not bad new. Fresh laundry, pressed collars, cologne I didn't recognize. I asked once, where are you really going? He turned his head just enough to look at me. Not see me. Just acknowledge the noise. I told you. Work. You don't have a job. His jaw twitched. You don't get to talk to me like that. Like what? Like I lived here? Like I was raising a child whose face he barely acknowledged? I almost said it. I had the words. But then I looked down and my son was watching me. 8 months old. Big eyes. Drowsy from the bottle I just fed him. And I realized. He's learning what love looks like. Right now. So I said nothing. I think that was the moment I started dying a little. Not in a dramatic, poetic way. Just slowly, cell by cell. The version of me who used to hope was cracking. And if you're still wondering why I stayed, please understand. When your body is sleep deprived, your heart confused, and your child depends on you. You bargain with monsters. But even monsters slip up. It happened on a Wednesday. I was folding clothes in the bedroom when his laptop, the one he never left behind, pinged. He'd gone out in a rush, forgot it, left it open. I told myself not to look. Then I looked. And there it was. A draft email titled, Transition Strategy, U.S. Exit. I don't remember the exact text. But I remember phrases. Remain married on paper. Secure citizenship before filing separation. Repatriate assets via third-party account. Custody not a concern. Custody, not a concern. Like our son was a bullet point in a spreadsheet. I closed the laptop. I didn't cry. I opened the closet and pulled down the emergency folder my dad had helped me make when I first got pregnant. Inside, copies of my passport, social security card, birth certificate, backup car key, a list of local shelters, a flash drive. I added screenshots. I added the email. I called Marla, the advocate from the immigrant spouse hotline, and said, I'm ready. And then, just like that, the shift began. I started recording. Every conversation. Every call. Every word I could catch. I bought a small recorder from the pharmacy and clipped it to the diaper bag. He never noticed. He didn't look at the diaper bag anymore. He didn't look at me anymore. One night, he came home at 2:18 a.m., smelling like sandalwood and something sharp, a scent that made my chest go tight. He stood at the door, stared at the baby sleeping in my arms, and said, I want to move back. I blinked. Back? To my country. It's better for all of us. We can start fresh. My mother can help. I felt my legs go numb. His mother. The one who never spoke to me. The one who didn't come to the wedding. The one who once texted him, you'll regret this American mistake. I said nothing. He kept talking. We'll leave after the baby turns 1. You'll get used to it. I already spoke to someone about the visas. Spoke to someone. Like it was already in motion. I smiled. Just a little. Okay, I said. We can talk more tomorrow. He went to bed. I didn't. I packed the diaper bag, grabbed my folder, my son, and left. No big gesture. No slammed doors. Just a quiet, 3:46 a.m. goodbye. I drove to a safe house run by a women's shelter Marla had found for me. They let me in. No questions. Just warmth. I slept next to my baby on a cot, surrounded by other women with haunted eyes and whispery voices. And for the first time in months, I breathed without guilt. But it didn't last long. Because 4 days later, he found us. You ever feel your blood freeze without the room getting cold? It was just a piece of paper on the windshield. No envelope. No handwriting. Typed. Clean. Chilling. You've made a mistake. Come back. There's still time. No name. No return address. Just that one line. Folded once. Centered. Placed under the wiper like a death note. And the worst part? The shelter's address was private. That meant someone told him. That meant someone I trusted didn't deserve it. There's a kind of silence that settles after survival. It's not peace. It's not joy. It's the silence of no longer being chased, but still checking the locks every night. The silence of answering, we're fine, while your hands tremble holding a baby bottle. That was my new life. The shelter gave us a private room with a twin bed, a fold-out crib, and a lamp that flickered when it got too humid. My son adjusted quickly. He smiled at the volunteers, giggled at cereal puffs, slept curled against my side like I was the whole world. But me? I barely existed. I moved like a shadow. Woke up before the sun. Washed my face. Changed diapers. Took notes in group therapy. Smiled when the counselor said, you're doing so well. They meant it. But they didn't see me in the bathroom mirror at 2 a.m., brushing my hair just to feel real. They didn't see me hold the door handle with shaking fingers every time someone knocked. Because he knew where we were. That note on the windshield? It changed everything. The staff changed our room. Logged the incident. Increased patrols. But I started to sleep in my clothes, hoodie, leggings, socks, just in case we had to run again. They offered to move us out of state. New shelter. New name. New number. But I wasn't ready to disappear. Not yet. Because I still had questions. How did he find us? Who told him? The list was short. Marla swore she hadn't leaked anything. So did the legal aid rep. But there was one person I hadn't thought to doubt. My mom. She loved him. Or rather, she loved what he represented. Stability. Culture. Respectability. She used to say he's so devoted. A real man. You're lucky. I didn't want to believe it. So I tested her. I called and said we're safe. Can't say where yet. She said that's okay. Just send me a photo of the baby. He misses his grandpa. I sent a cropped shot, just my son's face and a blurry patch of the shelter wall behind him. 20 minutes later, I got a message from a number I didn't recognize. That color paint. That style of crib. You're at Sunrise Women's Center, right? He was tracking the photos. Or someone was sending them to him. I blocked the number. Deleted the message. And called the relocation office the next morning. By the end of the week, we were gone. No forwarding address. No notice. Not even to my parents. We were ghosts. They placed us in a rented mother-in-law unit behind a social worker's house 2 towns over. Old tile floors. Cracked linoleum in the kitchen. No TV. No Wi-Fi. But the windows locked. And I had my own key. I registered under a program for vulnerable mothers. Got food stamps. Joined a support circle. Started therapy. Started to talk. I told the story. Out loud. In full. For the first time. And you know what broke me? Not the abuse. Not the lies. Not the betrayal of my own body carrying a child for a man who saw us as leverage. What broke me was hearing myself apologize for it. I should have known. I should have left sooner. I should have been smarter. My therapist stopped me mid-sentence. Angelica, she said, you didn't fail. You survived. And for the first time. I cried without shame. Because maybe you've been there too. Apologizing for the wreckage someone else caused. Blaming yourself for believing a dream that turned into a trap. If you have. I see you. That winter was brutal. I worked nights cleaning offices while my son slept. Wore gloves with holes. Shared kin soup with other moms. Laughed at stupid things like the way the radiator wheezed when it was tired. Sometimes I'd lie awake and listen to the silence and feel a strange kind of gratitude. Because nobody was yelling. Nobody was watching. Nobody was tracking me. And then in early February, something changed. I got a package. No return address. Just my name in stiff printed letters. I opened it on the porch with trembling hands. Inside? A photo album. The one from our wedding. I didn't know we still had it. It was pristine. Clean. Untouched. But when I flipped to the second page, there was something new. A sticky note. Tucked over our first dance. This didn't have to end like this. You ever feel like your past is a stalker? Like it doesn't need a face to follow you, just your name, just your scent, just the echo of who you used to be? I closed the album. Took it inside. Tore the pages out. Burned them one by one in the sink. And when I looked at the ashes, all I could think was, he's not done. But neither am I. Some confrontations aren't loud. There's no yelling. No plates thrown. No police sirens in the background. Just a quiet voice, and the sinking realization that someone's been waiting for the perfect moment to strike. It happened on a Tuesday. I'd just gotten back from the county clinic. My son had a low fever, nothing serious, but enough to keep me on edge. He fell asleep in his car seat before I even finished signing the pharmacy forms. So I drove the long way home. Past the marsh. Past the gas station with the flickering sign. Past what used to be my town. And when I turned onto the gravel road leading to our little unit, he was there. Sitting on the porch. Legs crossed, hands folded. Wearing the same jacket he wore on our wedding day. Like this was just some overdue reunion. I didn't stop the car. I pulled straight past the house, drove around the block, and parked behind the social worker's SUV 2 streets over. Then I called her. Breath shaking. He's here. Within minutes, she arrived. Didn't even ask questions. Just walked up and stood between him and the door. I'm here to see my wife, he said. Calm. Smiling. She's not available. He turned to me then. I'd stepped out of the car, my baby still asleep on my chest. Angelica, he said, like we were in a movie, like this was some emotional climax where I was supposed to crumble. Instead, I stood there. Barefoot. Exhausted. With spit up on my sleeve and scars under my skin no one could see. Why are you here? I asked. He blinked. That threw him. I wasn't following the script. To talk. To explain. You misunderstood everything. I've been under pressure. You know how hard it is for me here. Is that what the email was? I said. Pressure. Now he looked genuinely rattled. You read that? I read everything. He stepped closer. The social worker didn't move, just subtly shifted to block him. You left without warning. That was reckless. You made a list, I said. A strategy. A plan that didn't include me as anything but an obstacle. It wasn't like that. Then explained the hotel booking. The second SIM card. The relocation request. The email about assets. The note on my windshield. His face twitched. I saw it, just for a second, the flicker beneath the calm. You're not being fair. You don't get to say that. I came all this way to fix things. No, I said. You came because you lost control. He laughed. Laughed. I gave up everything for you. And I gave up myself for you, I snapped. That was the first time I raised my voice. He looked stunned. Like the sound physically hit him. You don't understand how this looks, he said. To my family. To my sponsors. To my contacts. I don't care, I said. And I meant it. I finally meant it. Because that moment, standing there in front of him, with the sun slicing through the trees and the baby's breath warm against my chest, was the first time I wasn't afraid. I'm filing, I told him. Emergency protective order. Custody. Full separation. He didn't speak. Didn't plead. Just stared. Then he leaned in and whispered, low enough that the social worker didn't hear. You'll regret this. You're making yourself an enemy. And I whispered back. Then you should have picked someone weaker. He walked away without another word. No fight. No scene. Just footsteps fading into dust. You ever feel like you just pulled your own body out of a fire and only then realized how badly you were burned? I stood there for a long time, felt the heat rise to my cheeks. Not from fear, from freedom. But that night, I checked my email and found something that nearly undid me, a shared document invitation from his old account, titled, Petition for Custody. There's a kind of tired that doesn't sleep. That's how I felt after opening the document. Eyes wide open, fingers trembling over the trackpad, reading the words over and over and still not believing they were meant for me. Petition for custody filed by his name. He wanted full parental rights. Full. The same man who never changed a diaper, never rocked our son to sleep, never took him to a doctor's appointment. The same man who once told me, lock yourself and the baby in the other room if you have to, I'm working. And now he wanted the right to take him from me? The legal aid team confirmed it. He'd filed an international custody motion with a lawyer from his home country, claiming I was mentally unstable, uncooperative, and intentionally alienating him from his child. I sat on the floor of the social worker's hallway that night. My son was asleep in our room. The other residents were quiet. And I just broke. Like I hadn't already spent the last year slowly disintegrating. But this was something else. This wasn't about me anymore. This was about taking my child. And if you've never been in that position, if you've never had to prove you're a fit mother to a system that barely understands your story, then I hope you never learn what that kind of fear feels like. We got a lawyer through a domestic violence protection program. Her name was Monica. Short hair, steel voice, and the kind of anger that made me feel safe. She built the case fast. Documented the abuse. Pulled the recordings. Compiled screenshots of the emails, the messages, even the burner accounts I'd traced back to him through IP matching. But here's the thing about justice. It's not designed for nuance. And people, especially courts, don't always see control unless it comes with bruises. I had no broken bones. No ER visits. Just a string of psychological landmines, emotional starvation, and documented silence. Still, Monica believed me. And that belief kept me from crumbling when the next betrayal came. My mother filed a statement in his favor. She wrote that she always saw a loving father in him. That I'd isolated myself. That perhaps I was overreacting due to postpartum stress. I read her words like they were from a stranger. I tried to hear her voice, picture her face, but all I felt was cold. She'd chosen the image of a man over the lived truth of her daughter. Again. The next day I blocked her number. And if you're judging me for that, that's fine. But you try surviving a war with no uniform and then realizing your family's been handing the enemy maps. Monica prepared me for court. We wore our best. Filed affidavits. Practiced testimony. And then he pulled his final trick. A character witness, his new partner. A woman I'd never met. She took the stand with glossy lips, a soft accent, and claimed that he was gentle, devoted, always spoke of his son with warmth. That I was emotional, erratic, confused about the past. She smiled when she said it. And I could tell she believed it. Maybe he found someone else who needed to be chosen. Maybe she hadn't seen the document titled Transition Strategy, U.S. Exit yet. Maybe she would. But in that moment, I let the silence do the talking. The judge reviewed the documentation, asked careful questions, then paused. Do you feel threatened by the petitioner? He asked me directly. And I looked him dead in the eyes and said, I don't feel threatened. I was erased. I have the evidence. I'm just asking you not to let him finish the job. That courtroom didn't clap. No music played. But I saw Monica's jaw tighten in pride. We were dismissed with temporary full custody and a protective order barring contact. It wasn't the end, but it was a wall. And sometimes that's all you need. You ever win something and still feel like you lost a part of yourself getting there? Outside the courthouse, I sat on the concrete curb and cried. Not from pain. From relief. That night I got a single email. One line. From his new partner's address. If I leave too, do I become background noise? There's a difference between surviving and reclaiming. For months I was stuck in survival mode. Counting diapers, court dates, emergency contacts. Trying to anticipate threats before they hit. But reclaiming? That's quieter. Slower. It looks like learning how to breathe again in your own skin. The email from his new partner sat in my inbox for 2 days before I opened it again. I kept rereading that line. If I leave too, do I become background noise? I didn't reply. Not because I didn't care, but because I knew that question had to echo inside her first. You can't pull someone out of a story they haven't realized they're in. And besides, I was finally starting to write my own. We moved again in the spring. Not out of fear but out of choice. A small rental house near a library. Peeling paint on the porch, cracked walkway. Birds that nested above the door like they'd been waiting for us. It wasn't perfect, but it was ours. I painted the nursery myself. Soft green walls, sunlight pooling across the floor in the mornings. My son, now toddling babbling wild with joy, called it the happy room. He doesn't remember the shadows, just the warmth. And I started to remember warmth too. I went back to school part-time, finished my degree online at night, found work at a local nonprofit helping other women navigate the very system that nearly drowned me. I tell them the truth. That abuse doesn't always bruise. That love can sound like manipulation when it's dressed up in compliments. That you're overreacting is how control learns to walk. Sometimes they cry. Sometimes they nod and don't look me in the eye. But sometimes, they stay after the meeting and whisper, "Me too." You ever feel like you've been speaking underwater your whole life, and suddenly someone hears you? That's what this new life feels like. No headlines. No dramatic showdowns. Just quiet power. Like closing old tabs in your mind. Like changing the locks and not apologizing for it. Like deleting saved contacts and breathing deeper. I haven't spoken to him since the custody order. Not directly. His lawyer tried to arrange supervised video calls once. Claimed it was for the child's emotional development. I said, "My child is developing just fine without emotional terrorism, thanks." They didn't try again. And as for my parents, I mailed them back the wedding album, ripped in half, one side each. No note. They got the message. I don't hate them. I just don't belong to them anymore. And maybe that's the point. Sometimes healing means standing in the ashes of your old self and realizing you were never the fire starter. Took me years to see it. But now I know the difference between being chosen and being valued. Now I know that love doesn't hide its passwords. Love doesn't need a spreadsheet. Love doesn't weaponize silence. You ever stop checking the rearview mirror and realize you're not being followed anymore? Last night, my son crawled into bed beside me, clutching a stuffed giraffe we bought from a thrift store. He whispered, "Safe now." And I said, "Always." This morning, I opened my laptop and wrote my name on something for the first time in years. Not as a wife, not as a case file, just Angelica. And for the first time in forever, it sounded right. He said I was his world. Turns out, I was just the bridge he planned to burn after crossing.